Hi, this is Jason. I have been watching Jordan Peterson's special. It's a series of videos on the book of Exodus, in which he has a group of intellectuals sitting at a round table and discussing the book of Exodus and what does it all mean symbolically, what does it mean in our lives, and so on. I've been looking at it in terms of addiction and what could the Exodus story tell us about addiction. And I've got this idea kind of bouncing around in my head that may or may not be of any value. I think traditionally it's very easy to compare addiction to slavery. And then to think of the person who is addicted as the Israelites in the Exodus story, that they are trapped, they are in captivity. People with addiction, I see it all the time. They come into rehab and they look haggard. They look like a sponge that's just been like squeezed out, and there's, they look sick. Their skin doesn't look good. They may have bruises, and you can see really like, wow, you kind of look like this drug has exploited you and taken everything from you. And in that way, you can sort of see the addict as being the Israelites in captivity, and they're being held against their will, and all their energy and vitality is being sapped for the use of the Pharaoh, right, would be the Israelites. For the addict, all of my health and vitality is being sapped by the drug itself in its service. It's become kind of the Pharaoh. But here's the controversial thought that I've had, because in a lot of stories in the Bible, we're invited to look at ourselves in various characters within the story. There's a famous story of two brothers. One goes out and spends his money recklessly and ends up in poverty and comes back home and asks for mercy. An older brother has stayed the whole time and has been working hard, and is a bit resentful of this younger brother when he finds out that the father is so welcoming towards this screw-up of a younger brother. And we're invited, I think, to think of ourselves as that younger brother, the one who's made the dumb mistakes, but we're also invited to think of ourselves as the older brother who feels morally superior, and that in and of itself is a trap as well. So I started thinking about, well, what if in the Exodus story, the addict is really like Pharaoh? Pharaoh in Egypt is a god. He tells his people that he is a god. And he takes the Israelite people and he extracts from them work that doesn't really belong to him. And he builds his kingdom using this illicit labor. Right? As slaves, he doesn't even have to pay them a worker's wage. He can just get the benefit from them and extract every ounce of energy from them. And if they die, so what? There's more slaves. And so he's feeding his ego, he's feeding his empire. And maybe that's what's going on in some sense with addicts. And I think of this because I'm thinking of my friend Darren, who was a pharmacist. And he said, you know what? I lost respect for these drugs. And I thought I could control it, was what he said. See, even when he said it, you could kind of see he had this Pharaoh-like quality about him. And I think even of the people who I see in rehab and are saying, I've just had a lot of trauma, a lot of people have died recently, and I just want to not feel those feelings anymore. I just don't want to think those thoughts. I don't want to remember those memories. But in some sense, is that then being like Pharaoh, saying, I deserve better. I'm not like the rest of humanity that might have to suffer and might have to work and might have to do my own work. I deserve to not feel that. And so I will use the drug like the Israelite to do what I want it to. It will give me happiness. It will take away my pain, and I don't have to feel those things because I am simply too awesome and too godlike to experience those things. And so, morality be damned, I get to do whatever I want in order to not feel those feelings because I am too important to feel them. Maybe in the same way that the Pharaoh wants glory for himself, I can't help but think of how many of us as addicts sit around and tell war stories as if there's some glory in what we did, that when we got drunk, it was epic. Oh, it was an epic evening. When I went off into the bushes and threw up, it was an epic throwing up. When I got so stupidly drunk and did this dumb thing, it's epically hilarious. And we come back as if we're warriors and we've faced the dragon and we've drank more than others and we've lived to tell the tale. Is there an aspect of addiction that maybe is not about we're just the humble victims who need God to call us out from our captivity, but maybe sometimes we're the egotistic Pharaoh that wants glory for ourselves? So I don't know. I'm going to play around with this idea a bit more. I'm going to come up with some lessons and bring them out to the various rehabs and see what people think. Maybe they'll just reject that out of hand. Maybe there's something there, but it's an idea. It's kind of, like I said, it's kind of rolling around in my brain. And maybe it will come out in some kind of more organized fashion, and we'll see if it gets any traction and if it helps people kind of make that commitment to be sober. And maybe, then part of it too is being sober means I have to accept life on life's terms. As the second half of the Serenity prayer says, accept this world like Jesus did, not as I would have it. That maybe part of this disease is about trying to control things and trying to be in control and trying to avoid the difficulties in life and live like kings. I don't know. What do you think? Am I off base?